Hi, I'm Brandon Poe, founder of Poe Group Advisors and creator of the Accounting Practice Academy. You are listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast, where we talk about stuff in the accounting world. If you're looking to buy or sell a practice, we are the premier accounting practice intermediary firm in the industry. Check us out at poegroupadvisors.com. If you're a firm owner looking to build a more profitable practice while actually reducing owner hours, sign up for our practice management workshop, which only runs a few times per year. Learn more at accountingpracticeacademy.com. Okay, welcome to our podcast. Today we have a special guest, Rich Stang. And Rich is currently in public practice. He's a CPA with over 30 years of experience in public practice. He's a founding partner of the firm DeLeon and Stang. Did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
He specializes in corporate individual tax issues, planning, estate, investment management, insurance advisory. Nice long list of services there. He's also assisted businesses in the development and implementation of accounting systems, budgets, and financial statements. He also consults with businesses in the areas of tax and financial strategies. He's worked with a number of clients to help them develop and work toward their financial goals. Welcome, Rich.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot of experience. How did you get started into this fun industry? Just tell us a little bit about yourself personally and your background and how you chose accounting.
Okay. So I was born and raised here in Gaithersburg, Maryland, suburb of DC. And if you're familiar with the DC metropolitan area, to say that you were born and raised here is actually in the minority these days, since it's such a transient area. We still have an office here in Gaithersburg. I've been married 38 years to my wife, Maureen. We have 2 kids and 3 beautiful granddaughters.
Oh, wow.
So I'm giving my age away, I guess, a little bit there. But, as far as getting started in accounting, I would have to say it was almost an accident in a sense. My father and my older brother are both engineers, and I always thought that, I would also become an engineer until when I started doing physics and calculus in high school, I realized I needed to go a different way. And so being good in other math areas, I thought accounting would be great. And then, of course, as you go through accounting, you realize that math is not really, being good in math doesn't make you necessarily a good accountant, but that's how I got there.
Yeah, interesting. I played around with some other things, and I took chemistry, and that made me kind of rethink things. That was some of the hard stuff.
Yep.
My hat's off to those chemistry majors and physics people.
Right.
So one of the things that's interesting is you created a firm before you had any public accounting experience, which is a pretty brave thing to do. What caused you to start your own practice?
So the other founding partner for our firm is Al DeLeon, and Al hired me out of college, actually. So that's how I got to know him for a pretty large trade association down in Washington, D.C. So we were in the accounting department there. He basically encouraged me to work with him to pick up a few tax returns on the side, just a way to make a little extra money. And so then we decided it sounded good to actually create a firm, DeLeon and Stang. So technically we created that firm while we were still working our full-time jobs for the trade association. And then through a couple of, career changes and how things were happening, about 5 years later, we were at a point where actually on a part-time basis, we felt like we couldn't take any more business. But then the jobs kind of changed a little bit. It was, what if we took this full time? So that was really how it started. We said, why not? Let's give it a try. And probably not knowing any better, we decided to do it.
Yeah. Well, one thing I've noticed is that, especially when we sell CPA firms to buyers who have had a mix of both public and industry experience, that industry experience really helps you understand the mindset of the business owner. And I feel like sometimes that makes for good consultants. Did you find that to be true?
Definitely so. And the other interesting thing, when we decided to go full-time, so that was 1989. I don't know the exact dates, but the FTC decision that said accountants and CPAs could now market their services, to be honest, we never knew they couldn't market their services. So, the first seminar that we went to was marketing, and actually that was a big confidence builder, because as everybody was appalled that they actually had to do marketing, we were sitting back there saying, maybe we can do this, because it seemed like everybody was very confused as to how to try to attract business.
Interesting. Yeah. You didn't have the curse of knowledge. Sometimes that's the nice thing about.
I think it has helped us to one of our longtime, she's now a partner, but our director of administration has always said, and she did work for some public accounting firms, and she's always said that we do think outside of the box when it comes to running the business here.
Yeah. Well, so you've had the firm for quite a while. What's been your greatest challenge as an owner of a firm? Who's grown a firm? Who's grown a firm too? I want to mention that you've grown nicely.
Yeah. The biggest challenge, I think the biggest opportunity is for us, we didn't start in public accounting. And so I think the notion, that we really, what helped us along the way is I think we very quickly, not always perfect, but very quickly we hired great people and, let them try to get out of their way. And frankly, the biggest challenge was probably letting go of my ego and not getting in their way. So, there's a bit of a learning curve there, but really getting good people, and I'll probably say it over and over, getting good people, letting them do what they do best and staying out of their way is really what has led to our growth.
Yeah. That's such a important thing to learn. And unfortunately, I've seen so many CPAs, they own their practice for many, many years, and they don't ever master the art of delegation and the art of hiring. So, the fact that you've done that, I would totally agree. That's the key to growth, because you can't do it all, right?
It is the key. I would say personally, certainly not in a perfect way, and still learning as we go, better and better ways to do it. But I think early on, we realized that had to be the way to go.
Well, all right. So this is a question. How many bad hires did you have to suffer through before you figured out how to hire?
Well, do you mean the entire time this year, or?
Well, yeah.
A few, and I will tell you our best hires, and it's a pattern that we are sticking with. Primarily with growth, we're really adding people through our intern pool right now, and have been for at least 10 years. And our best hires are bringing in young people as interns, and then moving them along the way, and trying to move everybody up as we go. The hires that haven't worked out so well have been those hires where it's kind of a desperate time, right? Somebody leaves in December and tax season's coming, and that you need to get somebody in here. And so whether it's been in effect using a recruiter and not really knowing the person well, or just making a quick hire based on running an ad, those have been the ones that generally haven't worked out.
Yeah. So now the interns, do you imagine you don't hire 100% of them? You sort of pick and choose the ones that stand out. Is that sort of the formula?
Yes, it is. Yeah. And I tell you, it's been interesting as we've gotten better and better at it. Number one, the interns that we're bringing in have been vetted pretty well. And then the ones that we keep on have done very, very well. It has been a great thing. And the other part of our hiring is the best hires are when we have the opportunity to get to know somebody pretty well, and we're hiring based on a culture fit as opposed to, great technical skills. Hopefully they're both, but our emphasis for a long time now has been, are they a good culture fit?
Yeah.
And that has been our best hires. And our feeling now is we hire for culture, we hire based on our core values. And if there are some technical gaps that need to be filled, we can teach that.
Yeah. I went to a seminar once and the leader said, write down all the skills that you want in a person. And so the whole group just did that. And then he went around and kind of said, okay, what are they? And, it's reliability, it's attitude, it's nobody said, they've got to be really good with Excel spreadsheets.
Right. Right.
And that was the point of the exercise, was those are things that, you can teach. You can teach how to work an Excel spreadsheet or software and technical skills, but you can't teach the soft stuff very easily.
Right. I find too, and this is looking at a resume, and this certainly isn't always the case, but that 4.0 accounting student that really isn't doing, that is just basically head down going to class, isn't necessarily typically as good of an employee as somebody who might have gotten a 3.2 but worked their way through college or was captain of a team or something like that. So that we do look at that kind of thing when we are looking at resumes.
Yeah, interesting. Would you say hiring and delegating is the number thing you attribute to your success?
In
your career?
Our success really is based on, again, hiring the right people and letting them do what they do best. But more so, I know in our core values, and we've changed our mission statement recently, we always say we put our people first. And a lot of firms will say, well, the clients come first. For us, it's the people come first. And then if your people are first, they'll take great care of the clients.
Yeah.
So in reality, that's what's helping, retain clients as well as staff. And we've even publicized that to our clients that, we talk about, we put our people first, and frankly, our clients love it. And the fact that they are actually listed second as we look at our mission.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta back up your people. Right. And
Right.
If you've got a client that's not pleasant to work with, that is bad for the team.
Yep.
So what do you do other than, the statements? What do you do to emphasize culture, and how do you pass that on to your team? How do you reinforce it?
We have, we've done a lot of work in honing in on our core values. We have a performance appraisal process now where we're doing 3 times a year. We're going through goals and rating on. It's not just a once a year performance appraisal. It's a kind of a continuous throughout the year. We're also rating all of our staff on the core values themselves. Are they, it's a 1, 2, 3 scale, 1 being lowest, 3 being highest, but where do they fall on living our core values? So it's actually part of the evaluation process.
Wow.
Go through, as well as I said earlier, it really is the main focus of our hiring process. When we sit down to decide on the hiring, it is, where do they fall, or where do we think they fall within our core values?
Yeah.
And it's, posters around everywhere. Although, of course, everybody being remote now, that's maybe a little bit different. It's on our website. It's when we're having a discussion about an issue, you'll see people pull the core value chart up to see where things fall as they contemplate a question. So it is talked about a lot, and we do try to keep it front of mind for everybody.
Yeah, we share that practice with you in terms of we publish and refer frequently to our core values. So our core values are on our website, and when we onboard a new client, we have a kickoff meeting, and one of the slides on the kickoff meeting is our core values. So they're they're published and we touch on them with the client, and that way the client knows what's expected. And I think that adds a level of accountability between the client and our team.
Right.
And people, you kind of hear about some people poking fun at like vision and mission statements. And if they're meaningless and if you're not actually using them to drive the business, I guess they are meaningless. But you got to keep bringing it back, right? You've got to have a consistency and frequency to really drive those things home.
Yeah, it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. We went through an exercise of, looking at our mission and our core values, and we did rewrite them somewhat, redesign them, probably is a better way to put it. That was all done by our staff. We actually had a committee of staff that worked on it, and certainly the owners approved it at the end, but we didn't change anything.
Yeah.
And in reality, our staff wrote our core values. So that also is certainly a great way to live them and make sure that everybody is in tune.
Yeah. And that, you mentioned it a minute ago, but I think that where that comes into play with staff is if they're making a decision and they're not sure how to make that decision, you think back to, okay, what's the core value? And that helps them. It gives them that guide, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's also brought home, like I said, a lot of our staff have only been with us throughout their career, including a couple people that have been here, 15, 13, 10 years. But we have brought in some people from other firms, and it's hearing them tell us how that is much different than the firms that they've been at before. I mean, that's a great reinforcer for us to know that we're staying on the right track.
Yeah. I got a kind of a question that just popped in my head. What do you guys do for fun? How do you keep the office fun?
Yeah, a little bit more challenging in our current environment, but actually I should have said it. We have 5 core values, but the first one is having fun while, looking forward, improving continuously, but having fun is the first statement within our core values. A lot of get-togethers. I mean, some of it is happy hours, lunches. We're having what are we doing next week? A virtual get-together. I think people are, and so everybody will be remote for Christmas, holidays. We've done gingerbread house building and pumpkin carving. You'd think, that's only for kids, but everybody kind of really gets into that when it's done. So, and we have been doing a lot of virtual events now, usually like maybe as many as once every couple of weeks. And so there are a lot of activities that go on, and some just small. We might pick up and just say, let's grab lunch in to the office, or particular day, if it's a little slow, we might shut down at 4 o'clock and go have a happy hour. I know one day, I guess it was kind of a break during tax season. Actually, some guys in one of our offices took off and went to see the new, I forget what it was, one of the sci-fi movies that had come out. I don't know which one it was. I wasn't with them, but right in the middle of the day, they went off to the movies. And
cool.
So it really is just the idea that the core value is having fun. Everybody gets very imaginative, and there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I'll tell you a nice one that we did recently. It wasn't my team that we did, but it was one of our vendors put on, and it was a virtual chef. And so they sent out like the ingredients, they didn't send out like the cold storage ingredients, but everything else. And then they had a chef, like a celebrity chef,
Wow.
do this virtual cooking thing. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
I'll bet. Yeah.
And as a team, one thing that I enjoy doing is having brainstorming sessions with my team. Like if we've got a challenge or we're trying to create a new solution for whatever it is, we'll just get around and brainstorm. And it's amazing how many great ideas can come from your team if you just try to capture them. And it's fun and everybody gets a voice. I feel like that's one of the things that we do really well.
We do an annual, again, this year, of course, a little different, but we do an annual strategic planning session. So it's kind of 2 days. One day is the owners and maybe a couple of managers. The other day is all staff. And that's where we set our strategy for the following year, and everybody participates. And it's done in a visual setting with the sticky notes and all of that. You probably, if you've seen that, but
Yeah.
they love being involved in that. And so down to setting the firm strategy for the coming year, that is a full staff, all staff activity.
Nice. Yeah. And people love being a part of that. I mean, they feel like they have a voice. It's so powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
So change the subject a little bit. You mentioned in our previous conversation that you're not entertaining merger offers. You're working to complete an internal succession plan. What led you to that decision?
We did have a few conversations. It's been quite a while now because we've been working on this internal plan for 7 years at this point. We talked to a few firms. It sounded great, but personally for me, when it came down to it, and at this time, literally it was myself and Al DeLeon, the founding partners. It's expanded now to 7 partners. But at the time, the one thing that stuck out for me was, for a while anyway, I was going to end up being an employee somewhere else, and hadn't done that for a long time. And when I really thought of it that way, I just said, I don't know if it's going to cost us a little money from that standpoint or not, but I just can't do that. One driver. And it just, from, again, leaning on our culture and seeing, I guess this has kind of been what's affirmed it for us, if you will, seeing how all these mergers that are taking place and all the cultures that are being blended that aren't really working. I think that was kind of the fear, is we felt like we had a unique culture. We felt like that would be disrupted, and therefore our staff wouldn't be happy if we went that route. So we've been working on the internal succession, and this does include the typical buyout for the retiring owners and that kind of thing. It's worked very well, and I think what's happening, just as I thought about that question a little bit more, I think a lot of firms are jumping into mergers because they just don't know what else to do. And so you read about it and say, well, there aren't any young leaders up there and they don't want to be owners. And I don't know who's writing that. And I guess the people that are reading that believe it. But the reality is, I think there are a lot of great young people in firms that do want to be leaders. They are willing to be owners. I think they just need to be asked, and they probably need to be worked with to get to that point. To look at them today and say they're not ready. Well, they're probably not ready because we haven't helped them get ready. And to say that they're not ready, but maybe they can be 5 years from now, I think we need to give them that chance. And it's work. And I will tell you, in going through it, and I did a lot of the work to get us to this point. If I had known how much work it was going to be, and a little bit of heartache along the way, trying to get everybody, moving in the same direction with agreements and everything else, maybe I would have thought differently. But we're in it, and it's working very well. My partner Al DeLeon will he's going to continue with us in various ways, but his ownership will transfer at the end of this year. So we are actually moving into the active part of the succession.
Wow. Yeah, I think for one, you've obviously done a good job of hiring. You have a firm that's of a size where you've got a good talent pool. And I think that's an important thing to remember, that, you know, there has to, you know, in order to do an internal succession, I feel like it's part of it is driven by size of the firm. And, but you've got to you got to hire the right people, and you got to develop the right people. Now, do you feel like your firm has done a good job at developing a more entrepreneurial type of mindset with your people?
I do, yeah. Actually, we're working very hard on that right now. You know, a lot of the statistics in CPA firms are realization rates and utilization rates, and you know, what are the key performance indicators? The reality is, we're looking at it as net income. You know, and it's amazing that as advisors to business, one of the key indicators for a firm would not be net income. I think ultimately it is, but you know, and if you do that right, you can break it down by division, department, even by employee, if you really wanted to. And so we've done a lot of work in that area. And I do think that we are really trying to drive an entrepreneurial mindset. In fact, I think as myself and Al DeLeon, as we get out of the way, I think we're actually going to move to a more corporate structure from a, you know, governance standpoint. And I think in reality, firms are going to have to move to that type of a structure probably sooner than later. I think it's going to have to happen.
Tell me more about that. Like, why do you feel like that corporate structure is a better structure? And what you mean by that is, like, there's a managing partner that has actual decision-making authority.
Right. Yeah. CEO, you know, the common CEO, but let's look at it this way. I mean, I may have a partner, or somebody may have the title of partner, whether they should be or they shouldn't be, you know, that could be an argument. I may have a staff person who's not an owner that's actually better in a COO role than a partner.
Right.
And so I really need to put the best people in these places where they can operate best. And I think this traditional partnership model somehow doesn't allow for that as well. And so I think it's basically getting your best people into the best places. And, you know, and maybe even, I know there's a firm here locally, SC&H, that actually is an ESOP, and everybody, you know, all the staff own that business. Maybe that's an interesting model to look at. Not necessarily for everybody, but, you know, does ownership and what somebody's role is have to be synonymous?
Well, here's my observation with the partnership model is, the problem is you're running into an industry that's rapidly changing. Accounting is, right, it's necessarily changing. And I mean, COVID-19 has really sort of made that very clear. But when you have a partnership model, there's usually that one partner, or maybe it's more than one partner, that really doesn't want to change. And if they have that veto power, then you're not going to change.
Right.
And you're entering a period in the industry where change, you know, it's a conservative profession, and that's been a good thing. But if it's gonna, you know, if it's too stagnant, you're not going to survive as a firm.
Yeah, and we're also in an industry. I heard this at a seminar I was at a couple of years ago, and you know, the guy that was running it brought up all the statistics of income per partner, and you know, but then he talked about the rapid change that was coming and how we had to change, you know, the model of our firm. And he was like, well, why don't, you know, number one, we're all smart people. Why don't partners want to do that? And then he backtracked to the slide that said income per partner, and he said, things are pretty good the way they are. And he must have gone back. He said that probably 10 times in the slide, and went back to that slide of income per partner and said, things are pretty good the way they are. And so we can, you know, for us that are older, we can probably ride that out. But for the sustainability of a business, you know, we've got to break that pattern.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you've recognized that at this point.
No, like I said, it's it's all still a work in progress, but
Yeah. Well, what do you think, we talk about change. What do you see as the biggest opportunities that the accounting industry sees coming? What's coming to us?
I think embracing the the technology of audits being done through, automatically, maybe even going away if banks are comfortable that transactions are all intact through artificial intelligence or whatever. I mean, that's, everybody's talking about that and saying, well, that's not going to happen. Or I think what they mean is it's not going to happen while I'm still working. I think it is going to happen. Frankly, the 80%, maybe 90% of individual tax returns could be done in an automated fashion right now. But of course, the IRS doesn't have the wherewithal to do that software wise. So will those things happen? The answer is yes. When, we don't know. So, we've all heard it. It's the issue of being that trusted advisor to our clients. And I tell you, we're working on a program now. And this is, I'm in Maryland, a member of the Maryland Association of CPAs, and they do a program called the Anticipatory Organization. And it's, can we anticipate what's coming down the line? And so when we talk to clients about, here are your financial statements, it's not about what happened in the past. It's about, okay, here's an income statement, here's net income. It's not about whether this is good or bad. It's what can we do in the future to change it? We're working with clients about looking at, business projections going forward. It sounds pretty obvious, but it isn't done a lot. It's being that anticipatory consultant to our clients as well as our staff. That's where the opportunity and I think the change is going to occur. How do we help people understand the rapid change that's coming and see that as an opportunity and not as a challenge?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where the value is. It's in the future,
Right.
and it doesn't have to be that hard. I think that's what CPAs don't always fully appreciate, is that this can be really simple. It's sitting down with your client and saying, where do you want to be? Where do you see this business in 5 years? Where do you see it in 3 years?
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
A large client a few years ago, and I mean, basically it seemed like a easy question. I said, where do you see your business in 3 years from now? Because if I need to know the answer to that question so we can advise you properly. He's like, nobody ever asked me that question before. Frankly, it wasn't that I obviously didn't know the answer. I read an interesting article that was, and this is, everybody, the answers are all out there. We just got to figure out the right questions to ask. And so the idea is you can sit down with a client and they'll talk about things they've never talked about before. If you ask them the right questions, they know all the answers.
Yeah.
You draw it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about books for a second. If you could recommend one book to our listeners, what would that be?
I think the one book, it's an older one. It's The E-Myth.
Yeah.
Michael Gerber, and it's about process, really. And actually, if the listeners are CPAs and accountants, Darren Root did a book with Michael Gerber, which was the E-Myth. I think it's called the E-Myth for Accountants or something like that. And that, after reading the E-Myth, that was pretty good to go through.
Yeah.
That was one. I do read a lot of books, and each one, there's a little bit out of it. I think a better, I read something the other day. It said 5 years from now, we'll be exactly the same as we are now, except for the books that we read and the people that we meet.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know if it was Henry Ford or some, it was old, but anyway, that's very, very true. That's very, but the E-Myth, I think, was a good book about process.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So if you were to go back and give yourself advice as you were starting if you could talk to the younger you as you're starting this firm, what would you what advice would you give to yourself, your younger self?
Wow. Don't settle. One. I said it earlier, get great people and let them do what they do best. Don't let your ego get in the way. That probably would be the one.
Nice. Well, awesome. Well, Rich, this has been a very enlightening conversation, and
Thanks.
it's really cool what you've done to create the culture that you have in your firm. And clearly it takes a continuous effort to maintain that. And I got a lot from this conversation in terms of that. So what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Email would be great. My email is rich@deleonandstang.com. Our website, deleonandstang.com as well. It's DELEONANDSTANG.com. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. Love connecting on LinkedIn.
Great. Yeah, we'll put all those links in our blog post when we release this, so it'll be there for everybody. So, well, Rich, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Accountant's Flight Plan podcast. If you like what you heard today, please follow us so that you can get updates when new episodes are released, and share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. You can also follow Poe Group Advisors on social media. Please visit our website for more information at poegroupadvisors.com.